Good evening, Mr. Bond fans. Lots to talk about. Just a bit of housekeeping up front. This is going to be a full-on No Time to Die spoilers discussion. If you have not seen the film yet, I highly recommend not continuing further with this video. I highly recommend that you see the film and then come back and watch this video, because I'm going to go into some quite in-depth spoilers, which I think would potentially negatively impact your first viewing of it. So if you have not seen the film, please click away and go and watch the film and then come back afterwards. Second bit of housekeeping is I feel like I need to lay out my credentials for this particular video. If you hadn't seen my previous non-spoiler immediate review of No Time to Die, that video, where I think I summed things up by saying that this film has some of my favourite things of the Craig era and some of my least favourite things of the Craig era. I'd recorded that video after a single viewing, and as of this recording, I have seen the film twice. I saw it once at the Royal Albert Hall premiere, and then a second time in a proper cinema. I think the initial reaction of this has some of my favourite things of the Craig era, and my least favourite things of the Craig era still holds, so I'm still very much mixed on this. We're going to go into more detail, going to kind of work through the film and some of the characters and give you my own take on things. Please do leave comments below explaining your own thoughts and feelings and opinions about this. I said again in my non-spoiler video that I felt that this film was going to be quite polarizing in the fandom, and it seems to be that way based on the comments that I've seen on that previous video and conversations that I've had on social media and whatnot. Some people are claiming, you know, masterpiece. Some people are, claiming failure. I think I'm somewhere in the middle, and I don't know if that's... I got some comments on my non-spoiler review, people kind of inferring that I, you know, was trying to put a brave face on it. Not the case. I guess with a channel like this, you kind of expect someone like me to be either like, going, yes, it's the greatest thing on earth, or, oh my god, it's this abomination. We'll get into it. So first point of order is the pre-credit sequence, how the film begins, and of course we do begin with a gun barrel, which I like. To me, this is just a nutshell of my opinions of the whole film. I loved how it kind of emerges from the silhouette of the Universal Studios logo and then goes across the screen, comes back. The gun barrel design itself is still in that kind of weird, really CG, really shiny. Maybe that's what a modern day gun barrel would look like. If you literally put a tiny camera into a gun barrel of a modern weapon, that might well be how it looks like. I miss that Maurice Binder design that was in the first 20 films and so wonderfully updated for the Pierce Brosnan era. That gun barrel design is still so iconic and still used in so much of the marketing. I'm surprised that they did kind of bring it back in Spectre, but they didn't do it here, and maybe that's because they wanted it to, you know, how the film opens with the iris opening up and then we go into the scene. The dot doesn't like move all the way around the screen. James Bond just sort of dissolves, and then we're into the thing. And I quite like how the gun barrel itself reflects that whiteness, the whiteness that James Bond is walking along, kind of blends nicely to the snowy environment that the film opens in. Crucially, we do not get blood dripping down the screen, and I can totally see why, because I guess if the blood came down and it was all red and then that had to kind of fade away, I see what they're doing. There has never been a consistency to the gun barrels of Craig's era, and I know that that may well irk some fans. I think I'm at a point now where I just don't really care about it. The Casino Royale gun barrel stands as the best of his era. How it ends that film's pre-credit sequence and leads into the titles, it's really well done, and I don't feel like they came close to getting anything as good as that. Then the pre-credit sequence itself, director Cary Fukunaga is clearly flexing his horror muscles here. He has a writing credit on It, the horror film, and he was lined up to direct at some point, so it makes sense that he would be able to do something that's quite chilling. And I think that this opening sequence, which is harkening back to the story that Madeleine Swann told in Spectre, of a man coming to their house and did she say that she shot him in Spectre? I can't quite remember, but the inference is there. It's a really great little hook, I think, to see that sequence. It's quite short, I suppose, but Safin, like, just put a Michael Myers mask on him and it's a Halloween film. I think there's some really lovely suspense moments in here, and also particularly brutal when he kills Madeline's very neglectful mother, just so casually, just like da-da-da-da, and she's dead. That is really it's quite a shocking scene to open the film on. Minor quibbling, minor discrepancies with Spectre. Inspector Bond says to Mr. White, are you protecting your wife? Mr. White obviously being Madeline's dad. And he says, my wife left me years ago. And I guess we could count dying as leaving. But to say that him and his wife went back to this particular hotel in their honeymoon and whatever, I guess maybe he just got remarried. Maybe he did just get remarried. I also thought that there is an inference, Inspector, that Blofeld was one of the people that came to Madeline's house when she was a kid, and obviously that's not the case. These are very minor, quibbling sort of continuity threads to Spectre, but I suppose they could just be explained away, and yeah, we're not supposed to focus on them. Something that I am focusing on, though, is Madeline gets a gun, shoots Safin. She shoots him in his heart. We've seen this in plenty of the trailers, that he has the bullet hole, kind of where your heart would be. Myself and plenty of other people had been inferring from this that means that Safin's character is in some way an adaptation of Dr. No from Ian Fleming's Dr. No, and they're reusing little elements here and there that they didn't use in the original film Dr. No. One of those elements being that Dr. No's heart is on the opposite side of his chest, and that's why he gets shot in where his heart would be, but he survives. And this seems like a direct lift of that, but they don't really do anything with it. Or if they did it, please do let me know in the comment section below. Again, I've seen this film twice now, and maybe there are parts of it that I just didn't pick up on. I don't think they ever explain why Safin survives being shot in the heart. I guess the bullet just missed, or maybe there were deleted scenes or script pages changed that did explain that Safin's heart was on the other side of his chest, because it feels like such a specific thing that it's weird that it's not made a bigger deal. Anyway, this scene is obviously going to be crucial going forward. Safin spares Madeline's life, and then we cut to present day, or 5 years ago, depending on how you look at it, and Bond and Madeline we pick up right after Spectre, really. They're driving around in the DB5, having a wonderful time in Italy, going to Matera specifically, where they're having some kind of festival where you write down secrets on bits of paper and burn them and stuff like that. This is conveniently where Vesper Lynd is buried, and Madeline decides that she wants Bond to go to Vesper's tomb to forgive her, basically, and Bond does just that. You know, for all of... I mean, the whole point of Quantum of Solace, I thought, was supposed to be Bond kind of getting over the death, getting over Vesper, and here it feels a little bit odd that we're dragging that up yet again. That being said, hearing the Vesper theme playing in the music score, I'm going to talk about the score in a bit, and hearing Craig say, what does he say? I think he says, I forgive you. Oh no, he says, I miss you. That got me. That really did. There were a few moments in this film where it did provoke some sort of emotional response from me, and that was very much one of them. I thought that was a really touching, sweet moment. And then, of course, the action kicks off with the DB5, and there's this whole chase sequence, which I absolutely adored. How the sound design, when Craig's in that explosion, how you're sort of with him, I thought that was really cool. I love how angry he is with Madeline and the whole thing about her potentially being a Spectre agent. That's really cool. Primo is introduced here, who's a villainous henchman who is throughout the film. I thought he was just going to be a very minor character, perhaps just the baddie of the pre-title sequence and Bond's going to kill him, and that. He pops up an awful lot, and as far as henchman characters go, he may well be my favourite of the Craig era. The Craig era, saying that though, hasn't had all that much henchmen. Casino Royale and Skyfall don't really have a particular standout. The villain just has a team of goons, and Quantum of Solace, the less said about Elvis, the better. And in Spectre, I just think that Dave Bautista's Hinks character wasn't used all that well. Primo I really like. He's got this bionic eye, which is a really cool feature. But he's chasing Bond around, and as I say, all of this action I just love it. I think it's my favorite Aston Martin DB5 sequence. It's great seeing it kitted out with these like modern gadgets, and Bond's using the grenades and the machine guns and all this kind of stuff, and meanwhile he's just really angry with Madeline. I thought it was fantastic. A brilliant pre-title sequence. And then obviously it has the emotional moment at the end where Bond puts Madeline on the train, and I thought Lair Seydoux was really brilliant in this film in general. There's a moment that, and again, another moment that kind of like got me is when she's kind of blubbering up, like, as he's saying goodbye and the train's leaving. Just the look of just anguish on her face I thought was really something else, and there's a lovely little clue here for later on in the film that I noticed on the first viewing, and it kind of set me up for what was going to come, where she kind of, as the door closing, she kind of takes her hand, she puts her hand on her sort of like stomach area, which is obviously going to be an indication that she is pregnant. It's just a subtle little thing, but I thought it was really nice, and I just picked up on that enough to be like, huh, okay, I think I know where we're gonna go with this. And then it's into the title sequence. I feel like I need to see this in more detail. I love Daniel Kleinman's work so much, and I feel like there's always so much in there to dissect and analyze. I love the song. First of all, Billie Eilish track, absolutely loved it since I first heard it. The title sequence itself, I like how colorful and vibrant it is. It's very different to, I would say, Skyfall and Spectre, where it was all very one tone. I don't quite know how to articulate it. Skyfall, I just think of blue, and Spectre, I just think of sort of sepia. This is a lot more color going on, and there are obvious homages to other Bond title sequences. Dr. No on Her Majesty's Secret Service, Thunderball, even you have like a silhouetted scuba diver going against a pure red background at one point, I think. Overall, I quite liked it. It wasn't one that, I don't know if it's going to be a favorite, but like I said, I need to see it multiple times, I think. But overall, things are off to a really solid start, and then we get into what is quite possibly my favorite chunk of the Craig era ever, this whole Jamaica, Cuba stuff. Bond is obviously off active service now, and I like that we have just a few shots of him going about his day-to-day business, which is just so kind of this lifestyle of just going out, getting some fish, coming back. He's got this really cool shower and brushing his teeth and all this. It felt like, yeah, this is what James Bond would do, and then, of course, he's brought back into the fold by Felix Leiter, who I just love him and Bond together in this film. Their chemistry is wonderful. I love the game that they're playing throughout the exposition that Felix is giving about why they want to recruit Bond to help on this mission. I think he's brilliant in this. If anything, it just makes me wish that we had more films, more opportunities to see these two together, because in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, they're both quite moody with each other. Here, you really get the sense of them as good buddies, and that's kind of crucial for what they're going to do with Felix later on, and yeah, I loved it. We're also introduced to Nomi here, the new 007, and this is something that I've not really talked about on this channel, because it was always in the rumors, and then it was kind of confirmed in some of the press material, as well as one of the foreign language trailers. I think it was in the Italian trailer. They have, you know, if you translate it, Bond says, "I've met your new 007. She's quite a disarming lady," or something like that. She's introduced really well here, and I really like that she and Bond are both in this kind of adversarial place right off the bat, and this takes us into the whole Cuba sequence, which I absolutely adore. The whole thing, from like pretty much as soon as Bond arrives in Cuba, and he sees Nomi across the dock, and they both sort of like look at each other. I loved that. But then he meets with Paloma, Ana de Armas's character, and she's such a burst of energy, of life, fun. I love her to bits in this thing, and I think she brings out some good chemistry with Craig as well. And this whole mission about infiltrating this Spectre party, which is Blofeld's birthday party, and I absolutely love there were the three bald guys. One of them's walking around with a tray with Blofeld's eye on it, and Blofeld's like communicating, because Blofeld's incarcerated obviously, and he's communicating with Spectre through the use of this bionic eye. I am in love with this. the action kicks off and it's some fantastic machine gun. I feel like there are more shots fired in this. It feels almost like, you know, a Brosnan film, Tomorrow Never Dies level, the amount of bullets flying in this film, and Bond and Paloma are getting shot at quite a lot. I love that they're all there to try and get this scientist, who I'm going to talk about in a bit, David Densick's character, and I love that they're trying to get him away from Spectre. Bond and Nomi are in competition to get him. Ana de Armas is there just doing some fantastic stunts and very funny, just bubbly, lovely character. This is, tonally, this is exactly where I like Bond films to be. It is a bit silly, maybe quite a lot silly. It's Blofeld's birthday party, for God's sake, and he's attending through use of his bionic eye. But I was having a great time with this. I love the music in this sequence as well. I love some of the stuff where Bond is like in front of the stage and all the Spectre agents are behind him and they're gonna drop well, we thought it was gas. It's nanobots. We'll get there, people. Overall, I was just having an absolute ball at this entire sequence. It's probably my favorite action sequence in the entire Craig series. He has some wonderful bits where he like takes the drinking tray and flings it at the scientist who's fleeing, and then he like chugs the martini. I love that him and Paloma take a moment to take down some whiskey before going out, and I love the Bond theme kicking in as Bond like flicks his machine gun. It's fantastic. I love the different layers going on in this sequence. I love Nomi in this sequence where the scientist is like, "Where are you taking me?" And she says, "Back to Mother, darling." It's so good. And so the whole point of all this is obviously that this David Densick scientist character who is introduced in a scene which is kind of sets the film off to quite a brutal. It's the first scene after the pre-title sequence where we see some of Safin's men go in and they're killing some scientists. Hugh Dennis is in this film. Why the hell is... I don't know if that means anything to anyone outside of the UK, but Hugh Dennis is like some kind of like stand-up comedian. He's on like comedy panel shows and stuff, but he plays one of... what's his name? Voldo Obruchev is the David Densick character, and Hugh Dennis is like one of his colleagues who gets killed. But the fact that the villains are just taking out these innocent people in this way is like, yeah, it's pretty brutal. So the plot's about nanobots, which, as a huge fan of the Everything or Nothing video game from the Pierce Brosnan era, I was kind of thrilled with. I'm not gonna lie, going into this, I'd heard rumors about cloning, and I was wondering if we were gonna get some Agent Under Fire-esque references. But no, I'm sure they're not directly referencing Everything or Nothing. But anyway, the nanobots are crucial to the villains' schemes in both of those stories. So I liked that being an element here. It's certainly one of the most, sci-fi plots of Craig's era.
We're not science fiction, we're in fact science fact.
Okay, science fact. And it's a bit, it's tough. You need to have a lot of visualization to kind of see what's going on, because these nanobots kind of come out in this gas, and they can target a specific person's DNA, and if you come into contact with someone with certain kinds of these nanobots, then they could kill you and all of this, and I'm not quite sure I understand the science of it, and it's tough because it's this microscopic like stuff that you can't see. So they have to do a lot of visualizing in the film of seeing these things in under microscopes and whatnot. The David Densick character, I can imagine he would be very annoying to a lot of people because he's a very silly character. And again, similar to the Primo henchman, the Dali Ben Salah character, I thought that this guy was going to be in a couple of scenes. I thought he was just going to be a straight-up scientist that they needed to save, and then maybe he departed some information to Bond before he gets killed. But he's in it throughout the entire film. You could make a case for him being the main villain of the film. I liked him as a villain. I thought he was very silly, very goofy, but you kind of didn't mind him getting beat around. I found it quite funny that he's in the middle of these spies trying to get him out, and he's having a terrible time of it. Which we will find out by the end of the film is a completely deserved terrible time. He's a horrible, horrible man, but fantastic villain as a result, I think. Ana de Armas is out of the film, and I'm sure a lot of people have already seen comments saying that she should have been in it more. I would have liked her to be in it more. I guess they use her just well enough, like for that one scene, which is so brilliant and she's so fantastic in it. I think I think her part is well utilized. There was some behind the scenes information that she came into proceedings quite late, apparently. It was at Craig's recommendation. I would love to know if at one point this mission was either just Bond going in on his own or if it was Felix going in with him. It feels like we never really see Craig and Jeffrey Wright's Felix go in on adventures together, but then that can be said of the entire series, really. Felix is never terribly involved in the action. And I guess that keeps it going here, but I do wonder if what they're going to do with Felix next would have had more impact if he'd have been in on this mission with Bond. Of course, that would have meant that we wouldn't have had Ana Damas's character, and I love that character so much, so I'm happy that we have it the way that it is, but I do wonder if it might have been a more fun finale for Jeffrey Wright's Felix to be more involved in the action and see him and Bond actually on a full-on mission together. But no, they're going to kill him off in a sequence which, it got me. I know I've spoken to some people who weren't too pleased with how it was handled. I felt the emotional impact of it. I was really, and again, him and Craig have such great chemistry in that death scene in particular that it made me feel bad. And it really makes me dislike the Logan Ash character, the Billy Magnuson guy, who is, again, another character who pops up at a few points during the film, a few points more than what I thought. And he's this kind of like, I like Bond refers to him as the Book of Mormon, because he's so like smiley and perky, and he's got a shirt on, and he's of that very much that stereotype. He's got such just this like dickhead like smile, he just like really smug face, and it works really nicely when you find out that he's actually a baddie and he's there to take the scientist somewhere else. Really good fight scene with Bond. Again, I think the hand-to-hand combat stuff in this film is really first class, and there is a terrific moment where they have a gun, and Obrachev has a choice as to whether he kicks it to Logan Ash or whether he kicks it to James Bond, and he kicks it to Logan Ash, and it's just this great moment. And we have some scenes in London. He gets the Living Daylights Aston Martin, which is really cool, and the Bond theme playing as he arrives at MI6 is great. I love the scene with him and Ralph Fiennes, the whole, has this desk gotten smaller or have you gotten bigger? It's nice to see Bond in a position where he's like, I don't need to hold back anymore, you're not my boss. And I like how much, I think this is Ralph Fiennes' best performance as I actually really like him in this film, and I didn't care for him all that much in Spectre. The fact that his character is kind of involved in this nanobot project, he's kind of he's not quite the Dr. Frankenstein of the situation, but he's certainly endorsed it, let's say. And I think this film did a really good job for the first hour of, I did not know who to trust. I thought, is M gonna be revealed to be a villain behind, or is he gonna be a part of Spectre? Obviously, with Madeline, I didn't know whether I was trusting her or not. Nomi's a new character. I didn't know. The scientist, Logan Ash, it was surprising me who I felt like I could trust and who I couldn't. And we have a few sequences in London around here with Naomi Harris and Ben Whishaw back as Moneypenny and Q. Love these two. I think they do brilliantly here. Naomi Harris isn't given all that much to do, but I feel like she had quite a few close-ups. I feel like they underutilize her in the story and dialogue, but she's very much present in scenes that she's in, and I love the scene where they go to Q's house and he's preparing dinner, he's got a date coming, he's preparing dinner, we see his cats. I think it's a really lovely bit. And then we get this whole thing with Blofeld. Well, first of all, we get the information that Blofeld, they think he's gone completely crackers. I do love the stuff when we see of Christoph Waltz just muttering to himself in his cell, and I suppose he's actually just communicating with his agents via his bionic eye. I'd love to know when he fitted that bionic eye, because I'm pretty sure in Spectre he didn't have it, so maybe Spectre smuggled it in some way, who knows. But the only person that he's talking to is, conveniently, Madeline Swan, who has set up practice in London. And she is visited by Rami Malek's Safin, who gives her this spray, which is this particular kind of nanobot, and then this is going to assassinate Blofeld, because Safin wants to kill all of Spectre. Madeline's dad killed all of his family, and he looks to, kill all of Spectre as a result of that. I love that Madeline doesn't realize who he is. I know that he has a mask on in the pre-credit sequence, but you still see his skin, and he has this skin condition, and, you know, you would think that she would put 2 and 2 together, but no. Something else that they don't really address is that I mean, how old is Madeline supposed to be in the pre-title sequence? She must be 9-10 years old. I think she's playing with a Tamagotchi. So she's probably about my age, to be honest. But she's definitely aged about 20 years, and Rami Malek obviously hasn't. I said in one of my prediction videos that I assumed there was going to be some kind of de-aging plot here. There isn't really, not one that I caught up on. Did they ever address why he doesn't really change much? I guess maybe that's why they put the mask on him in the pre-credit sequence, so that we didn't ask this question. Maybe he is supposed to be like 40, and in the pre-credits he's just 20. I don't really know. It's odd because I don't think of Rami Malek as a particularly mature actor, but I thought it was odd that was never addressed. Anyway, then we get the Blofeld scene, which I think is... I love Bond and Madeline meeting for the first time since Matera, and I will say that I love the build-up to Blofeld coming out. He's in this like little glass box, and he's just coming down this hallway, and the music's really good here. I think it ratchets up the tension really nicely. Madeline can't take it, and she wants to get out, and then Bond touches her and is infected with those nanobots. So basically, if he were to come into contact with Blofeld, he would kill him. And fortunately, Blofeld riles Bond up enough that he kind of grabs him and starts to strangle him. He says, "Die, Blofeld, die," which is quite cheesy, but that is in Fleming, right? Like, that is in his You Only Live Twice, so I guess it's a direct lift from that, but I'm not sure if I liked it in that book, or if I don't know. It's a brutal moment, and I quite like Craig in it. Christoph Waltz, I don't think his performance has evolved that much from Spectre. I was kind of excited to see him come back to see what he would do. Particularly because he's been quite open about being disappointed in his own performance. So I was like, oh great, he's getting a second chance at it. Let's see what he does. Didn't do much different as far as I'm concerned. And I thought his death was a bit unceremonious. Particularly as he's the main villain from the previous film. And maybe it's just maybe people didn't really like him all that much. Maybe they did like audience testing and realized that, oh, actually, people don't really seem to like this guy very much. But it's very without fanfare. It's just like a reveal that, oh, he's dead now. I would kind of liked a bit more there. I was assuming that they would kill him off because a lot of these people that they're bringing back for this one who've been in the Craig era previously, obviously we knew that this was going to be Craig's last Bond. I was expecting him to die. I wish I was a bit more satisfied with it. Again, I just don't think they handle Blofeld well. Madeline runs off, and Bond is able to track her down to her family home in Norway, and we get one of the two big, I think, contention points. You can let me know if you believe me, if you agree with me or not when I say this. Madeline is revealed to have a daughter called Mathilde, and she's 5 years old, so implication, obviously, being she has these bright blue eyes, obviously the implication is that she's Bond's daughter. This is what we're all thinking. They put her to bed, and Bond's looking at her, and then Madeline says, she's not yours, by the way, which got a big laugh in the cinema. It was really nice, and Bond's like, wait, but the eyes, and Madeline's like, no, whatever. And I thought that was quite nice, actually, because it subverted expectations. I was like, oh, okay, I'm taking this at face value. Why wouldn't I take this at face value? And we have some relatively domestic scenes. Bond makes a little, bit of breakfast for the girl the next morning. Madeline reveals more about Safin. Her dad had a secret room in the house, because of course Mr. White has secret rooms everywhere. So Safin's whole revenge thing is kind of revealed here to Bond, and then Nomi, it turns out, has been dispatched to Norway to track Logan Ash, and Bond realizes this, and he knows that he needs to get Madeline and Mathilde out. This prompts a really cool car chase. I really liked it. I really liked the car chase. I loved when they get into the foggy forest, and Bond is kind of striding around like he's setting up traps for the people. We get Logan Ash's death here, which is a wonderful reference to For Your Eyes Only. I absolutely adored that scene. And again, Bond's quite brutal here. He's putting multiple shots in people. It's not enough just to knock them out. He needs to shoot them to make sure they're dead. And that's fantastic. I like when he comes across Logan Ash, who's kind of incapacitated on the floor. And Bond comes up and and you just hear he's just out of ammo. And so, but I love that he would have just had no hesitation of killing him in that moment, and then obviously he, like, you know, gives the car the final tug to crush him, and loved it. Brilliant moment. Madeline has a nice moment as well where she kills one of the bad guys. I thought it was quite nice that they gave her that. In the premiere, like, in the Albert Hall, people actually cheered at that moment when she comes in and shoots him. There were cheers at a good few points, actually. There were some stunts, like in the pre-credit sequence where Bond, you know, drives up the motorbike on the ramp. That got a round of applause too. But Madeline and Mathilde are captured and taken away by Safin. Bond is picked up by Nomi, who was obviously doing a terrible job of finding Logan Ash. And this is where Bond and Nomi have kind of a he refers to her as 007, and I think that she takes the implication also that Madeline's kid is Bond's kid, and I think she kind of softens on him a bit. She's been very adversarial throughout this whole thing, and earlier on when Bond is reassigned as a 00 agent, she's like, what number is he? What number is he? We never find out what that number is, but there is a moment where she decides that she's going to relinquish 007 back to him, which is really nice. I think it's really nicely handled. Her kind of, I guess her whole arc is to kind of build respect for him, and I think maybe the turning point of that could have been handled a bit better, but I think that, you know, maybe it's a mutual respect thing as well, because he refers to her as 007. He's finally okay to use that designation with her. I think their relationship is really nicely handled. She's not in the film nearly as much as I thought she'd be, and I think she's really well used in the places that she is, particularly in the whole finale sequence where her and Bond go into Safin's island base to kill him. So, up until this point, I've still been having a good time. Like I say, that whole Jamaica-Cuba bit is, like, really top tier for me. The rest I'm still enjoying on a level. Things take a very steep, sharp decline once we get to the final act and Safin's base, which I love the base. I love that Bond and Nomi are going into battle together. It's very Tomorrow Never Dies with Wei Lin. It's with Dr. Goodhead in Moonraker. I like this setup. Safin has his, Garden of Death, which is really nice, which we'd been speculating about. And, his poison plants and all this kind of stuff. He has his nanobot farm thing. But around here, I would have liked to have been able to understand what Safin's motivation was. I get the whole, he wants to kill all of Spectre because Spectre killed his family. I get that. That's really easy to understand. His whole kind of killing millions of people around the world with the nanobots, I was a little bit like, what? And I know that this is a freaking Bond villain. Like, they don't need to have what's Stromberg's motivation in The Spy Who Loved Me? He just likes the sea and wants people to live underneath it, I guess. But I needed even that, because so much of Safin is so related to Madeline and Mathilde and Spectre and his family and all this kind of stuff that I don't know where the whole world domination thing came in. I wonder if at one point it was some kind of, like, population control thing, but then Avengers came out and they didn't want to do it because people might draw too much of a comparison to that. I don't know. If I did, if I missed something, please do let me know in the comment section below, because some of these scenes with Rami Malek, particularly because he kind of mumbles some of his lines, and I'm not sure that I've picked up on exactly everything. But he's got Mathilde anyway. There's this scene with him and Bond, and they must have digitally removed her from the trailers of that, because we've seen clips of that scene in trailers, and that she is not there. So I'm guessing they did some kind of digital removal thing. Now, with her, there's this whole thing with Madeline says, she's not yours. I take that face value. I'm like, okay, fine. Once they get Safin's Island, there are a couple of scenes between him and Madeline, and he's just referring to Mathilde as if she is Bond's daughter. And I'm like, huh, okay. So, and even when Bond is in front of him, he's kind of, I can't remember the exact language, but it is like, oh yeah, she's your daughter kind of thing. And it's not treated as a reveal moment, it's just while they're having this exchange, and I feel like There is a reveal moment at the end where she does kind of say she is your daughter, but at this point I'm confused. I feel like something might be on the cutting room floor to kind of fill in this gap, because Bond's also just kind of carrying on, and I felt this whole thing was quite muddled. There is a funny moment where Safin's got Mathilde and she bites his hand, and then he's like, oh, if you don't want my protection, you can just go. And she does just that. She like turns and goes, and he got a laugh from the audience, but then it was followed by a bit of a like, because he just lets her go and wander around his gigantic base, and yeah, it was really odd. I don't know. I feel like the script gets really messy at the end, because she meets up again with Madeline and Bond, and I feel like something's missing here, or something was cut and they just needed to get her back with her parents quickly, but they didn't have time for Bond to be fighting Safin, or I don't know. It feels quite messy. Bond kind of charges Nomi with taking Madeline and Mathilde to safety, and we get the big emotional goodbye moment, and then we get to okay, we're going to talk about the ending now. In the lead up to this, there is some stuff about, there are some boats coming which are going to take Safin's nanobots and distribute them around the world, and millions of people are going to die. And then there's this building tension between, because Safin's island is in this disputed waters territory between Japan and Russia, and Tanner's getting these calls of like, oh, they're all really angry right now, what shall we do? And M's like, no, we need to just keep waiting for Bond. There is a terrific fight sequence, one of the best of Craig's era, where he's in this stairwell as he's going up to the base's control room, and it's all, you know, it's obviously not one take. There are obviously some editing and special effects trickery to make you think it's all one take, but it's wonderful. I love, he uses his like magnetic watch EMP thing or whatever to like blow up Primo's head, his eye, which that was such a great moment. I loved it. It blew his mind, or that's the line. It was quite mind-blowing. I thought that was a fun, proper Bondian line. I think there's some nice bits with Q, actually, on the comms, like when Bond gets to the control room and Q's like, right, Bond, you need to be very careful here. Look around for a red switch. And as he's saying this, Bond's just like flicking all of the things, because he needs to open the blast doors, the roof of the thing, so that the missiles that M has ordered from a nearby ship will go in there and destroy the nanobots and save the day. So Bond's just doing all this, and they're like, we're not going to fire the missiles until you're clear, Bond. And he's like, no, you need to do it now. And one of my main, and again, please explain this to me in the comment section below if I'm missing something. One of my main issues with this entire ending is that I don't understand exactly what the ticking clock is. Why does it need to happen now? Because it all becomes this race against time, and I guess it's that the ships are coming to take the nanobots away, but I'm sure that would take time. Like, I don't know why they couldn't just wait for Bond to leave. Why does it need to happen now as this emergency? And Safin's still alive. He closes the blast doors, and we're told that if the missiles hit them, they'll just bounce right off, which, okay. I mean, they would still do a good amount of damage from what we see at the end of the film. It kind of annihilates a good half of the island, but okay. But even if they did just bounce off, why? We'll send more afterwards. Like, Bond can go back into the control room and open it up and live? I don't know. Okay, so there's this final fight with Safin, which is... there's a brilliant moment in it where he snaps Safin's arm in half. It's friggin' brilliant. Everyone, like, in the twice I've seen it in the cinema, that moment got, ooh, it's really violent for a Bond film and really good. But then he has this vial of nanobots, which he smashes on Bond's face. It's also on his hand, and it means that Bond can't touch Madeline or Mathilde ever again, otherwise he will kill them, much like how he killed Blofeld. And there is some lip service given from Q that, oh no, it's eternal Bond. It's happened now. Once it's happened, they're in your system and you can never get rid of them. So, with the missiles coming down, with this happening, Bond has been shot at this point as well. It's all kind of built up to this moment where he is just going to decide that he is not going to try and escape, he is just going to die. I feel like all of the pieces that have been set up to craft this moment just really unsatisfying, and Right, okay. I've really had to stew on this for the last few days because I just know that there are going to be people out there who see people like me saying that they hate the ending, and I really do. I hate it so much, and people are just going to, take one look at this, for God's sake. Look what I'm surrounded by. People are going to look at, me and people like me and just say, well, you're just too close to it. You're too much of a fan. You're too precious. You need to sort of step out and it was never going to work for you. You're just against the concept of it. And I think I said this in my one of my prediction videos as well. I'm not against the concept of potentially ending a Bond film with Bond dying. What I'm saying is that I hate how that is handled here. As I've said, I don't really understand what the ticking clock is regarding the missiles coming in. Why can't they just give it an extra 10 minutes? Press the abort button. Okay. Get Bond off. Nomi isn't that far. She's got a boat. Go back, pick him up after he's opened the blast doors, because Safin's dead now. I guess because the tensions are rising with the other countries and it could spark a war. I would have thought that if you blow up an island in a disputed territory, that would start a war anyway. I just didn't know why the missiles had to land at that exact time, otherwise end of the world stuff. It didn't really work for me as a moment of self-sacrifice, and maybe it even isn't supposed to. Maybe Bond just knows that he's got no chance. But obviously the main kind of emotional thrust of it is that he's been infected with these nanobots, and he knows that if he leaves, he will never be able to have a family. He won't be able to touch Madeline or Mathilde. And we have this emotional moment where Madeline says, she does have your eyes. And Bond is like, I know, or something like that. So without confirming that, yep, she is his daughter, which, again, I just feel like it's so muddled earlier on that I didn't get the full impact of it. I was just like, well, wait, why didn't you tell him that earlier on? I guess because she didn't trust him, or maybe she didn't feel like she wanted him in their lives at that particular point, so she didn't want him potentially hanging around. It's really clunky. And also just the fact that they really have to sell you on the fact that this whole nanobot thing, once you're infected, that's it. You can never get rid of them. Ever, Q says. It's eternal. And I'm kind of like, well, maybe try to develop something that could take them out. Like, okay, it might take a while, but let's chance it, shall we? Let's give it a go. Let's get Bond off the island and figure out a way to solve this. I didn't buy it at all that it would be this situation that he would decide to just give up and just be like, no, okay, well, fine, I'm gonna die. And I wasn't sold. I think it's going to be one of the bigger points of contention of the film, probably the biggest. I think people might even overlook the whole daughter thing for the sake of this, and it's going to be known as the Bond film that Bond dies in. And sorry, I'm going to be stealing. I was talking about this with quite a few people, but Thomas Ryan, who's a supporter of this channel, and he had a line. Sorry, Thomas, that I might be misremembering this, but it was something along the lines of, this is going to be remembered as the film that Bond dies in, rather than the film that Bond has a family in. And I thought, oh yeah, no, that's quite, it could have gone that way. It could have ended on something a bit more optimistic, and it chose not to. It contrived the reasons around these last 15 minutes to kind of get to a position where you're supposed to feel like there is no other alternative to this. And I just didn't feel that. It felt gratuitous and unnecessary, and I'm sure that people are going to be hearing this being like, no, you completely missed the point. It's the fate of glass to break or whatever. I don't know. And I just know that it's going to be a big point of contention in the fandom for a long time. But I also wonder what that's going to do for general audiences. There were some conversations that I was a part of after seeing the film for the first time. And some people who weren't necessarily Bond fans, as in, they don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of it like most of us do, there was some confusion. Like, there was one bloke that actually said, oh, well, I guess they're not making any more then. And we're like, what? And he's like, well, they killed him. I was like, well, no, but they could reboot it. And he was like, what? Like, to some audiences, the whole concept of a reboot and all that just doesn't really it doesn't really cross their minds much. I don't know how they reason in their own minds why, you know, a man who was, you know, 30 in 1962 is 50 odd in 2021, but anyway, whatever. And then we have, you know, the last couple of scenes, which involve MI6 kind of doing a bit of a toast to Bond. They read a Fleming quote, which I was just a bit, I was kind of checked out. I don't know, maybe it was just too much for me to take in that I couldn't focus, but there's that, and then the final scene, which is Bond and Mathilde driving off, while All the Time in the World by Louis Armstrong plays, and I hated it. There are quite a few Majesty's callbacks in the score itself. And at first, in one of the first instances, I thought, well, this is a sweet, nice little thing. Bond says we have all the time in the world, but that phrase ends up coming back, and I know that they're obviously tying it into No Time to Die. Time is a bit of a theme throughout the whole thing, and I just didn't feel like it was earned. I feel like, well, do another song. Why are you doing the Louis Armstrong song, which plays really wonderfully to the romantic sequence between Bond and his wife-to-be and on Her Majesty's Secret Service, and here it's kind of Bond's death anthem. I guess maybe it is just a death anthem for the series. Obviously, it's, you know, they use an instrumental of it at the end of Majesty's when Tracy is killed. So I didn't like the callback all that much. There were a few moments in the score where I was actually a bit disappointed with the score. The only bits that stood out to me were when they were calling back. I liked the Vesper thing. I liked the initial reprisal of We Have All the Time in the World in one of the earlier scenes in the pre-credits. They have the Majesty's theme in there when Bond's talking to M in a rather innocuous scene, which I thought was very odd. And there were some nice Bond theme moments, but otherwise, I don't know. I was expecting more. And believe me, I really did stay until the end of the credits to ensure that James Bond will return thing was going to be there, because it's, that I would have been worried. I was going in expecting there to be some kind of ambiguous ending or some kind of melancholy ending, similar to Fleming's You Only Live Twice, and I wondered if we'd have a scene where we see Bond, like, floating in the water, like the explosions have just flung him into the water, and he's, you know, and we see him wake up, or he's completely, you know, he lives a completely isolated existence on Safin's base, which I did really like the base, actually. I do just want to say it was a real proper Bond villain base, and I like that Safin's kind of moving in. We have some scenes where they're putting up, like, paintings and stuff. It's got this real, like, I'm back now kind of vibe, which I like. But yeah, that ending was just so, I've seen this sentiment expressed by many other fans, that it takes time to digest and process, and yeah, it does, and I've kind of stewed on it for a little while, and I just, I don't like it, and I think it skewed my perception of the film the first time watching, because I can't remember what the exact quote is or who said it, but there is a quote about the first 10 minutes of a film and the last 10 minutes of a film are the most important, because in the first 10 minutes of a film you get an audience hooked on whatever it is, and the ending 10 minutes kind of dictate the mood, the spirit in which the audience leave on. And this is the ultimate downer. Like, it's more of a downer than Majesty's Secret Service. And even when we have emotional peak moments towards the end of other Bond films, I'm thinking of Casino Royale with Vesper's death, Skyfall with M's death, you follow up those death scenes with some, like, kick-ass moment that means that you do leave the cinema feeling invigorated, on high spirits. And this doesn't do that, and that's by design. But how can I leave the cinema on anything other than, like, oh crap, that's well, that sucks. And I like some of the action in the climax. Like I say, I think Nomi's really good in it. She has some fantastic moments. Killing the scientist is great, but Safin as a villain, I really like Rami Malek, but I felt he was just lacking a bit of something. He didn't quite have that Javier Bardem menace that I like from a modern era villain. And just the whole, I mean, maybe I am too precious. I don't know, like, let me know what you think in the comments below. It's just, I don't, oh, and someone else said something, I can't remember who this was. I'm sorry, I'm stealing this from you, whoever you were. There was one of the screenings, I can't remember which one it was, but someone made the point of saying that, at the end of the film, it's like Daniel Craig stops being James Bond and we're just watching Daniel Craig say goodbye. And that resonated with me because it does feel so out of character. It just doesn't gel with... Yeah, I don't know. Okay. My capsule thoughts on the whole death at the end is that I don't mind the concept of it. I just don't think it's handled in this good a way. No, I think it's disastrous. I think it's horrible. I hate it. And maybe, you know, I'm sure there'll be plenty of talk of how it's a perfect end to Craig's tenure and all that kind of stuff. But just as a trope, I don't like that. I don't like the hero must die and sacrifice himself for the greater good and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think that the moment of sacrifice for Craig's Bond was earned. I don't think it was worth it, quite honestly. I think back to something like Skyfall, where Judy's death in that whole film has this air of doom about it. I don't know, there is something about it, even though it's not said directly or translated directly. I think there is this feeling of inevitability that Judy's M is going to suffer from some kind of fate by the end of it. And this film didn't have that. The whole thing just felt very rushed in the last 15 minutes because, oh, well, this is the last one, and God forbid we, you know, give him some kind of happy ending. And I just didn't feel like it gelled with the tone earlier on, which I think is quite upbeat and vibrant and funny. Like, I'm laughing at lines, and not in the sense of a... You know, I said this in my other review, I don't feel like it's a comedy, but I do feel like it has a fun, upbeat vibrancy to it, and that disappears at the end, and maybe it'll grow on me, maybe it'll be like Majesties, and, you know, people didn't like Majesties coming out of that at the end with James Bond's wife dying, and I thought from that the series kind of learnt its lesson that, yeah, those last 10 minutes are what the audience leave on, and if an audience are leaving on that, I wish it was earned. I wish I felt emotion in that sequence, but I didn't. I felt more for Felix earlier on in the thing. I felt more when he was throwing Madeline on the train at the very start. Come the ending, I'm just a bit confused and a bit annoyed. And yeah, I think it's... Ooh, is it the worst thing in any Bond film ever? I'm gonna get so many comments of people just telling me that I'm just some, like, you know, pissed off fanboy. And maybe I am, but what can I do? I hope it works for you. As ever with, you know, anything that's Bond related that I don't like. If you like it, if you feel it's a fantastic end to Craig's tenure, great, good for you. I'm happy for you. If anything, I'm jealous. I'm jealous that you received some kind of emotional impact from this. It was completely missing for me. Maybe it will come in future. I don't know. I'm obviously going to be watching this film about, 50 times over the course of my life, so I look forward to reevaluating it even further down the line. And I also don't want it to detract from the fact that, like I say, this is an extreme high, extreme low of Craig's era for me, and some sequences I just adore and are perfect for just exactly where I want these films to pitch their tone, the level of fantastical, the gadgets, or like that kind of stuff. I love Bond and Nomi, their back and forth. Paloma is brilliant. I like what they do with all of the MI6 regulars, actually. I think that they utilize them really well. They're in the film quite a lot, but I think that they don't overstay their welcome like they did in Spectre. They feel like they are all feeding into Bond's ultimate goal and mission. I love that I bought the romance between Bond and Madeline much more than I did in Spectre. I still don't know if I quite bought it enough to believe that he would, think of not being able to spend time with her as a reason to blow himself up. It is the ending. It is the ending that is my main issue with this, and but I'm gonna try not to let that detract from the things that I do really love about it. I'm sure I'm going to see it at the cinema another couple of times. Yeah, it was I just remember the first time coming out of it, you've got a bunch of Bond fans who see their, number one cinematic hero incinerated before their eyes, and what do you expect an audience to leave on other than just like, need some time to digest, and maybe I still need even more time to digest. I feel like I have a relatively concrete opinion of this film now, but maybe I just need longer. So, there we go. That's that. This film needs a long time to fit into the rankings of all of the Bond films for me. I have no idea where I would place it now, because as I say, it's such an extreme high and low for me. I don't think I would take it over Casino Royale or Skyfall. I would definitely take it over Quantum of Solace or Spectre. So I don't know what that says, but I was thoroughly entertained. I think it's a gorgeous looking film. I think it's a marvel that you do not feel the overly long runtime, or I didn't anyway. I thought it moved along at a fantastic pace. Action's incredible, as I say. But yeah, just a few story choices at the very end kind of marred it for me. Let me know what you think about this film in the comments section below. Also below you can find links to my various social media pages, including my Facebook page, my Twitter page, my Patreon page, and why not click the subscribe button to stay up to date on future video uploads that I'm going to be making on this channel. I can't believe this video has gone on this long. This was supposed to be like a little half-hour kind of thing. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking with me all this time. And I hope that this doesn't seem like too much of a downer. I think for the vast majority of this film, I can be very positive, but yeah, the negatives are the biggest negatives, but the positives are the biggest positives. So yeah, we'll see how this one fits in. Give it a year and maybe I'll rank it with the others. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all think, and please do keep your spoiler comments contained to this video. Please don't go posting on other videos. I'm aware that I'm posting this before this film has opened globally. So yeah, just be aware of if you're posting spoilers or not. So with all that being said, and until next time, Bond fans, so long for now.